All right. Well, I'm gonna. There we go. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Hanging On to Hope with Rabbi Herschel Jaffe and Cancer Support Community Delaware. We are going to hear an amazing message about Herschel's cancer journey, and he's going to share his inspiration with us. So, Herschel has been a runner. He has been a rabbi. He has been awarded the Presidential Award of Courage. And he is a five-time cancer survivor. So Herschel, welcome. I turn the microphone over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me the honor and privilege of speaking to my friends. As a rabbi, I've dedicated my life to being a prayerful friend to cancer patients everywhere. Um, on the last page of my book, which was published recently, the name of it is "Why Not Me? Searching for God When We Suffer." A cancer survivor's story of family, friendship, humor, and faith. So on the last page of my book, there's a scene at my grandson's bar mitzvah. And my grandson's uh, bar mitzvah, his sermon, his topic was about courage. And he said, I asked my grandpa Herschel how he found courage in the time of adversity. And Grandpa Herschel told me that Psalm 138 in the Bible begins with the words, the Hebrew says, B'yom karati b'ta'aneni, in the day I called to you, O Lord, you answered me. And the last line is, leave not your work unfinished. So Grandpa told me that this means that God has meaningful work for Herschel to accomplish. And that's really how I've dedicated my life, and thanks to God for saving me in life. In 1978, I got the nickname the Marathon Rabbi, the running rabbi, for participating in the New York City Marathon. In 1980, I was the rabbi who visited the 52 hostages in Iran. And when they were liberated, President Reagan invited me to the White House to greet the freed Americans. And then 2 years after that, I became a hostage to an illness. Never sick a day in my life. I was diagnosed with a rare leukemia. Only 500 Americans get this leukemia. It's called hairy cell leukemia. And there was nothing to help me, but I heard that there was a doctor in Chicago who was working on this disease. And sure enough, with very little time left to live, wearing a mask, fevers of 105, I was flown on a little Angel of Mercy flight to the University of Chicago. And that night, the doctors got emergency permission to compassionate usage to try to save me with the drug interferon, which is now a famous drug, immunological drug. And I also almost succumbed to the rare TB because my immune system was crumbling. So I was one of the sickest patients ever with this disease. And by some kind of miracle, a combination of God, the doctors, and the medicines in no particular order, my life was saved. And the doctors told me that if I had one cancer, I might expect that it could morph into another. And sure enough, here I am at 88, having survived cancer 5 times. Um, I, what I would like to do, everybody, is to offer you some guidance that I found. It's actually in my book, Ways of Coping with Illness. Oh, and I also want to mention, if you see my website, my inspirational website is marathonrabbi.com. And on there, you're going to see my phone number, my email. And if you or anybody you know ever wants to reach out for prayerful support, of course, that's my mitzvah, my deed in life. So here's what I write about to help people cope. I wanted to give you a scene in the hospital. I just remembered to tell you about this. So there it was in the middle of the night, fevers of 105, and I began to pray. And I was a rabbi, but I learned how to pray from my minister friends. They came to my bedside, and instead of saying, I lift my eyes to the mountains from whence cometh my help, uttering the words of the psalm, they said, here's our friend Herschel. He's lying in this bed. He wants to live to see his daughters, and that prayer worked. So in the middle of the night, with these terrible fevers, I began to pray in personal terms. And I said, Dear God, would you hold my hand? I'm trying to get up this mountain, and every time I get up a little way, I fall back again. So please, Lord, hold me tight and let me not fall into the abyss. And that prayer worked. So here's some of the things that I'm offering you as guidance for coping. The first is cheer yourself on. Ultimately, you must learn how to comfort yourself. No matter how many people are around during the day, reality can be very hard to face in the loneliness of the night. Secondly, be kind to yourself. Because you're not functioning, because you're very ill, don't ever think of yourself as worthless or worth less before your diagnosis. And very important, don't be passive about your medical treatment. Let your doctors and nurses know what you need. Some of my friends, they visit their doctors, their oncologists. They have no questions to ask. They just take everything on faith. When I visit my oncologist, my wife comes with me so she can hear what the doctor's saying so that I can remember it. And we have our list of questions. Learn to cherish your very existence. Don't feel guilty if you're too sick to do something, because you, as a creature of God, have value simply because you exist, even if you can't be productive in the ways you were before. One that's very emblematic of me: hang on to your fighting spirit. On my ID bracelet are the words "never give up." And I think, in a way, my fighting spirit made the difference between life and death. My nurses told me that once I was delirious, I was pounding on my bed rails, yelling, "Come on, Herschel." I was cheering myself on like my wife and daughters cheered for me when I ran the marathon. Come on, Herschel. And of course, attitude isn't everything. You know, it's misleading. I forget who wrote Faith, Medicine, and Miracles, but this famous writer almost made it seem that if you don't have a good attitude, then it's your fault. Of course, it's not your fault. Attitude isn't everything. You can't control everything. Another thing, set goals for yourself. No matter how small, reaching any goal helps you feel a sense of achievement. So my goal is, I don't go on Facebook. Actually, I was on Facebook with a lot of followers years ago, but I said something political and I got those poisonous responses. So, but what I believe the most important thing is, um, you know, to reach out to people every day. I try to think, who can I talk to? Who can I visit? I had a congregant who lost his wife, and I called him to offer support, and I invited him to stay with us. And so almost every day I try to think of who did I forget? Who in my past? Maybe it's a roommate from college. I search on Google and I find them and I connect. And this gives a lot of meaning to my life because I believe that life is with people. And then write about your experience. Writing about my illness gave me something to live for. And some days it took a lot for me to write, even a few words. But completing my book helped keep my fighting spirit alive. Actually, what happened is my friends who were authors and the co-authors of my new book, uh, they came to my bedside and they said, Herschel, you have a story to tell. And I couldn't write anything. They taped me and I spoke kind of weakly and they transcribed it. And it turned out into my first book, which was called Why Me, Why Anyone? The Chronicle of My Days in the Hospital and the Sources of Faith, any faith, particularly Jewish faith, that help people cope. Let me see what else. Uh, and keep some normalcy in your life. Even if you're able to do something for 5 minutes a day, if physical limitations prevent you from doing things, try to devise new ways to do them. And the fact is that I'm not running anymore. I had a fall about 3 years ago and it triggered some condition in my body where I can't run anymore. I can only walk about a half a block. If I have to go further, I need a wheelchair to take me down the corridors of the hospital. I think of new ways to do things instead of running. And focus on what makes you feel good about yourself. When my physicians noticed how depressed I was in the hospital, they said, Herschel, why don't you be a rabbi? Go counsel other patients. And I want to tell you this story. So they kind of embarrassed me. There I was in my bed and depressed and not eating and not wanting to look in the mirror. I looked so emaciated. And they said, listen, we'll give you some more pain medication. And why don't you go down into the basement there of the hospital, and we'll let your body sink into some warm water, because I had a lot of pain in my limbs for no reason they could find. And there was a young man in front of me in a wheelchair, and they were calling him Jerry. And the physical therapists were urging him on. And he was trying to lift himself up on the wooden parallel bars. I tell you, if he lifted himself an inch, it was a lot. But they said, that's it, Jerry, you did it. So that night, I thought to myself, I think I'll visit my friend Jerry. And I went into his room, and if anything, he was worse than I was. And he said, how you doing, Herschel? What did the doctors tell you? And I started to reacted in a very pessimistic way. I said, oh, I don't think they want to tell me the bad news. And he said, Herschel, you're Jewish, aren't you? I said, yes. He said, you're a rabbi, right? He said, listen, Herschel, I'm not Jewish, I'm a Christian. But didn't I hear that the Jewish people are a people of hope? That the national anthem of the Jewish people is Hatikva, the hope. So why don't you be more hopeful? I think at that moment, that young Christian knew more about my religion than I did. I had to go back as an experimental patient for many months, and I would visit Jerry. And then as the months went on, I made a visit, and they said, Jerry didn't make it. And I burst out into tears. I went into the chapel, I prayed, and I thought, how am I going to remember Jerry? And I did something as a rabbi. We have the memorial prayer at the service called the Kaddish. Magnified and sanctified be the name of God. And we mentioned the names of the departed, and I added Jerry's name to that list, and I do forevermore. Let me see. Don't lose your sense of humor. Learn to laugh at yourself and enjoy life. I say yes to everything. My childhood nickname was Sunshine, and my new modem is Sunshine. Okay, be thankful for every day and greet it joyously. Since my diagnosis and all I've been through, every moment is very special to me. By the way, there's a Hebrew prayer. It's very beautiful, very simple. When you're rescued from illness or danger, you come before the congregation and you say the Hebrew words, Baruch shegamalani kol tov, blessed are you who has done me much good. Isn't that wonderful? And I must say that prayer 100 times a day. Decide what's important in life. I finally learned, how to say no to people, how to don't let other people tell me how to live. Or for me, being with my loved ones is the most important thing. Accept the support of your friends, the strong support of everybody who loved me and prayed for me, kept me going through the darkest hours. Don't be afraid to let others know how vulnerable you are. It's not a sign of weakness to accept help. I remember as a rabbi visiting patients in the hospital, and they didn't want anybody to know they were sick. They never allowed people in to comfort them. I think that was a mistake. And lastly, search for meaning. Whoops. What happened?
We're still here. We still hear you.
Oh, are you there? Okay. I just okay. So finally, what I want to say is, especially when we're older, try to find something in your life that has meaning. And I'm a rabbi. I'm very proud of my Jewish heritage. But what I teach is that you can't really call yourself a spiritual or religious person if you're not kind to other people. So that means that the heart of true religion is human goodness and decency, and it far surpasses denominational lines. Thank you for letting me share with you, and of course, I welcome your questions. I used to tell my congregants, please ask me only the questions that I know the answer to.